Alright, it is Rebirth Watch day number 6, which means we have developer comment number 6 focusing on music. But before we get to that, if you take a look at the Final Fantasy VII Twitter account as well as the Remake Twitter account, and you look at where their banners are supposed to be, they're gone. They're completely empty blank spaces, so it definitely feels like Square is gearing up to reveal something in regards to Rebirth. It's most likely going to happen at Summer Game Fest, but if it doesn't happen there, I think relatively soon we will see something in regards to Rebirth. Because if you go to the Final Fantasy XVI Twitter page and the main Final Fantasy account, they still have their normal banners intact. Now, it is possible that maybe they'll throw some Final Fantasy XVI banners up on the 7 pages, just as a little cross promotion that might happen on the weekend when that pre-launch event takes place, but I don't know. Something is clearly going on. Now, moving on to the developer comment for the day, this one's focusing on music, which again, this is pretty straightforward. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is gonna have music. Insert picture of Yakuza guy looking at his phone intensely as he's smoking a cigarette. Nothing crazy or new, but I wanted to take this opportunity to just gush about the music of Final Fantasy VII Remake and just kind of talk about how much I love it. So moving on to the question, this is from the music supervisor of 7 Rebirth, Keiji Kawamori. The question, will Final Fantasy VII Rebirth have new original music? His answer, many new tracks have been created for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and we will be making some new arrangements of tracks from Final Fantasy VII Remake as well. Now, the Final Fantasy series is known for having incredible soundtracks despite how you might feel about each respective game. That's one thing that I think everyone agrees on, is that the music is always good. And Final Fantasy VII is no exception. That has an astoundingly good soundtrack. And I played that game for the first time as a 7-year-old, and now as a 32-year-old, and even back then, I would find myself really connecting with the music. And if I was scared or anxious or nervous about something, I would hum these tracks to myself to kind of relax myself. And because those older games in particular had no voice acting, it was all reading, music, and battle sounds, the music really stands out and it sticks with you, and they become tracks that really affect you and help create these really awesome memories, not just of playing the game, but of what you experience in your life. And hearing what they did in 7 Remake, they really went above and beyond what they needed to do with that soundtrack. For example, the battle theme, Let the Battles Begin. There's not just one version of that track in the game. There's like 500 different versions of Let the Battles Begin, and they all build up to the moment you hear the final, full orchestral version of that song, because the earlier versions start off kind of simple, kind of laid back, kind of bare bones, and then they smack you in the face with the final version, and it's this big, sweeping, epic battle track. Towards the end of the course, there's this really beautiful string section that always reminds me of Aerith. When Aerith fights in combat, she's this really elegant Cirque du Soleil flowy kind of fighter, spinning around, flipping her staff, dresses flowing in the wind. And whenever I hear that part of the music, it reminds me of Aerith in battle. It's really awesome how music can do that. And speaking of battle themes, every area in the game has its own unique battle theme that's a rearranged version of the main theme of that area. So when you're in a Shinra reactor and you hear that Shinra music and you get into a fight, you're hearing an arranged version of the Shinra theme that has more urgency to it. And it keeps every area and every fight feeling really fresh. The Collapsed Expressway, for example, is a really big standout where you hear this really jovial kind of sounding music as you explore.
It's been like this, you know, ever since the plate fell.
And there's no other way?
It'll be an adventure.
And then you get into a fight and this PSO2 Tekken sounding music comes out of nowhere and just blows my mind.
Get back.
I can fight too, you know.
Don't overdo it.
I'll show you what I can do.
It's crazy how many different tracks that were new and old that they put into this game. Another great standout is the rearranged version of Tifa's theme that becomes this really big, bombastic electronic track that plays for the first time when Tifa and Aerith are beating up Don Corneo's pervert gang on their way to rescue Cloud. And the music itself is just so charming and upbeat, and it really perfectly matches that feel-good vibe of Tifa and Aerith really trusting one another and connecting with one another on a deeper level to the point where they officially become friends with one another. It's super cool how that scores that entire scene.
The Colosseum!
What the hell?
Get down!
Oh, you stupid! Wait!
Good job, Eric.
It was nothing compared to you.
The Ghoul theme is another really great track that plays in the train graveyard as you battle that ghost monster in the control room. And it starts off very slow and haunting, and by the end of that fight, it feels like a knockdown, drag-out fight as each phase really progresses. There's this unmatched sense of escalation and urgency in that specific track as each phase begins. And you hear it again when you battle Abzu in the sewers for the final time, and when you battle Leviathan in your VR fight. It's a really amazing track.
It's on you.
Guess it's my turn. Bring it in.
Go on!
Back to the limit. Come get some.
And speaking of phases, each of the boss themes have multiple phases in their arrangements to match the phase of the fight that you're currently in. And it makes every fight with a boss feel important. And it makes you feel like you're actually progressing in these battles because it's not just a different phase of the fight, but the music changes as well. Genova Quickening is another big standout because when you fight Genova Dreamweaver, you hear elements of the original Genova theme, but it's not quite what people expected until you get to that final phase of the fight. That cutscene plays, the black goo falls from the ceiling, everyone readies their weapons, and then that iconic Genova theme kicks in, and it's just like, here's the home stretch by the developers. This is what you guys wanted. Kick the Genova creature's ass and move forward. And it's such a standout moment in that game that if you go onto YouTube, there are tons of reaction clips to that one specific moment in the game where everyone's just taken aback at how amazing the Genova theme is. And they even find ways to sneak in Sephiroth's theme towards the very end of that theme, which is really, really cool and kind of meta in a way. Because it's like, yeah, this is Genova, but there's something bigger creeping on in the background.
So it's my turn? Can you take over for me?
And then of course you've got One Winged Angel. I think One Winged Angel in 7 Remake might be the best version of this track that we've ever heard, because again, as each phase of that fight escalates, so does the music. And by the time you get to the end and you're beating Sephiroth's ass, the music feels so triumphant, and it just pushes you to fight a little harder and a little faster so you can finish that fight and try to put Sephiroth down for good.
Nothing personal.
And then of course, because Zack is going to be in this game, I'm really curious to hear what kind of music plays during the Zack sections of Rebirth. And I think this would be a really cool opportunity to take some of the tracks from Crisis Core, give those new arrangements and put them into the game. So it'd be really cool to hear if Zack has his own Crisis Core music back in this game for every fight. We might get some new battle themes for the bosses as well. So there's so much more that they can do, and what they did already is super impressive, and that's one of the things I'm most excited about for Rebirth, is hearing that soundtrack. So that is the video. I'm Curious Corduroy. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think of the music of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Is there a specific track from the original game that you have a special place in your heart for, that you hope to hear return in Rebirth or moving forward with part 3? Let me know down in the comments below. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.